Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies. Johnny, Jesse in the house. And boy, ladies and gentlemen, do we have the pleasure of having Pat on once again from the Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast, leading a great podcast on the YouTube channel that he has about this legislation that Missouri is trying to pass. And Pat, I appreciate what you do for the city or the state that we live in. Someone's got to do it, man. I know it's not just you; it's a group effort, and there are a lot of people involved, man. But you have a great participation in this effort, and welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. And hello to Johnny and Jesse as well. And thank you for the opportunity for me to just take a few minutes and let you guys know where we're at right now with the Second Amendment Preservation Act in the state of Missouri, our state of Missouri. We actually have a hearing coming up to get the bill out of the House, and that's on March 4th. That's this coming up Thursday. And I'll make sure that Paul gets the link to the witness form. But something has happened. For those of you who haven't seen any of my videos in the last week, we have more co-sponsors on this bill in the House. That's HB 1637, the Second Amendment Preservation Act. It's the House side of the bill. We have more co-sponsors on this bill than any bill has ever seen since the state of Missouri has existed.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
So it's a true testament to the grassroots movement and people reaching out to their representatives and indeed their senators as well and letting them know we want SEPA. We want the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And then one more bit of exciting news is this coming up Thursday. Sheriff Mack is going to be there at the hearing at the state capitol, and he is going to be talking in favor of SEPA and instructing everyone on the committee why the state should pass this bill. So a lot of exciting stuff is going on. We've had some drawbacks with weather and scheduling problems with actually getting hearings done in the Senate, but we're certainly moving forward full steam ahead in the House, which is really nice. Go ahead.
What does it look like in the Senate? Do you think is it favored in the Senate, do you believe? Or what are your thoughts going in?
It's absolutely favored in the Senate. There's just too much grassroots support.
Which is a beautiful thing. And it's a very appreciative to live in a state where people actually want to keep a freedom like that, to where the federal government really can't step in and say, hey, do this, do that.
I was going to say, and I'm going to take it back a step real quick, just for those, I did this last time as well, but it's really important for those of you out there who don't happen to be, for whatever reason, if you're against the Second Amendment or you're not for gun rights or anything, that's not what we're talking. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But even if you're against that kind of stuff, like, this still applies for you in the sense that it is a state taking control of their own laws, saying that the federal has no say here. We can do what we want. We are our own. Maybe that's a little bit far of a stretch. My point is that even though we're talking about the Second Amendment and everything that we're dealing with right now is about the Second Amendment, this is important on a massive scale just for states' independent rights in general, no matter what law it is.
You're right. It's revolutionary, and this is nullification. By the way, you were absolutely correct. I generally don't go down that road when I talk about this because it opens up a larger conversation, but it is nullification of federal law. So when this bill goes through, and I'm confident it will, and it becomes a law, we start from scratch with every law the federal government has already put in place. And then we start going through those laws methodically to find out which ones we want to keep in Missouri and which ones we don't. And so that basically it's nullification. States' rights, using the 10th Amendment to take back our Second Amendment rights, with the federal government nibbling away at our Second Amendment rights constantly, a never-ending, ceasing orgy of nibbling on the Second Amendment is very scary. And we need to take that very seriously. And one more thing I want to point out that's extremely important. This would never have gone this far without grassroots support. It's all the folks that are calling and sending emails. They're the ones who are making the difference here. I can't, just take away credit from Eric and from Jared, my senator and representative. Those are the sponsors of the bills and how much they've done. But they can only do so much. If there's no show of support for it, it dies on the vine.
So, I mean, it just goes to show that people in Missouri care about their Second Amendment right is ultimately what it comes down to. They're aware of what's going on in the world today, of, like you said, them nibbling away at it. And the people of Missouri say, no, thank you. I don't want that. So that's beautiful, man.
Yep. So I'll tell you what, we'll have a lot more news come Thursday. And Thursday night, I predict I'll probably be making a little bit of a podcast and updating everyone on what happened in the House.
Awesome. Are you going to open up like a bottle of champagne whenever all this comes to, gets to its end?
Yeah. A champagne bottle, may be in order. There's a lot of people that are unsung heroes in the background. And I think what we'll do is we'll probably all go out and have a steak dinner together. There's a core group of about 5 of us that have really pushed this hard. I'd like to say some of their names and give them a little bit of love. First and foremost is Ron Calzone. He is a citizen activist, and he has done this with his own time and his own money, and he has spent a lot of money basically with printing up these witness forms, hosting these witness forms, and not to mention spend a lot of time knocking on doors up at the House and the Senate to drum up support for this. Jimmy D., who is a member of Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast, has been my partner in crime. He's been really great about feeding me information when I don't have time to talk to my representative or senator directly, or in some cases, Ron Calzone. There's Aaron Dorr. He is the policy director of the Missouri Firearms Coalition, who's been a very important part of this too, and has drummed up a lot of grassroots support as well. And so his part cannot be understated. And Dave Burden, who has been instrumental in getting this going as well. So those are the folks right offhand that I'm talking about, the grassroots folks. And so literally with a core group of about 5 people, literally we were able to literally just ask the public for their support. All they needed to know is that this bill even existed, which the mainstream media didn't do. So we used social media to get the word out. And that's the only tool we have available. The mainstream media will not touch this with a 10-foot pole. They do not want to bring attention to it, not even negative, because they learned the hard way when they tried to crush constitutional concealed carry. They were all over that, and all that did is bring an enormous amount of attention to it, and everyone voted that in, if you guys remember.
Yeah, that's the even negative. What is it? Bad publicity is still publicity. Like, even them being negative about it draws attention to the whole thing. It's so sad that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. You can.
No, you're good. Absolutely, that is correct. They gave nothing but negative stories about it, and it sailed through. What was it like? I think it was something like 69% of the vote said, "Yep, we want that in our Constitution." And the media spent a lot of time telling us that it's bad. Neighbors would be killing each other over minor arguments. That bar brawls would end up in gunslinging fights, and they did everything they could to paint a pretty bad picture of it.
I think that, sorry, Jesse, I just want to make a quick comment to what you just said that you shed light on, is the fact that you're right that the local news won't really even talk about it. Was the bill originally, you said SB 588, right?
Well, last year it was SB 367.
Okay.
This is not the first time we've tried to get this through. However, this is the first time that we've had a social media campaign.
Right. I misspoken, but I was listening to the radio on my way to work one day. I was driving to the office to grab some materials, and on my way back, I was listening to, I think it was 710 in the morning, and it's like something with mundane. I mean, they're kind of Republican and stuff like that, and I called in, and they're like, just talk about whatever you want. And I misspoke. I said SB 588. But I had mentioned, I was like, yeah, man, like, everyone needs to check out SB 588. I was like, the people of Missouri need to know what their gun rights are, and this is something that we need to vote on. And he had no idea what it was.
Yep.
Zero.
And you are correct, by the way. That is the bill number this year, by the way.
Okay, so I wasn't misspoke, so that's good. But I just hung up the phone, and he's like, well, what bill did you say it was again? And I'd already hung up, but, it's just crazy that he didn't even know what it was. And it's something that's very important, so.
Yep, and believe it or not, I can't believe that there is absolutely no mention of this in any media whatsoever, and I mean none. You'll find it in some blogs, some Jefferson City blogs, citizen journalists. That's it.
I was just going to say, I totally believe that it's not in media until you just said citizen journalists, because I mean, we've talked about this before, but I hate to see it. Mainstream media, there's a running joke there or a running gag that it's not real media anymore. But that's so true. There's no actual like real journalism or reporting there anymore. It's for entertainment. So no matter what, like multiple stories get brought to them and they're like, well, as a company, we're against this, this, and this, so we're not going to talk about them at all. But these will sell. This will sell on TV. So we're going to talk about these things. And it's kind of pro our agenda.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's citizen journalism is taking over because the mainstream media cannot report objectively. They just can't do it anymore. There's always an agenda. They always have, basically some kind of slant in the news.
Which defeats the point of journalism.
It's the most. That's a corrupted institution.
Right.
At that point, probably one of the highest levels of corrupted institutions that we have examples of in America is media. And I think just the average everyday person realizes that too. Like even the Joe Schmo down the street goes, "Oh, I know they're just feeding me whatever, but I really like it, So I keep watching it. My parents watch local news. I don't know how they do that. My parents watch local news and they watch.
Mine too. Mine too, man.
They are just captivated by it. And what Johnny said earlier, I think it's because of it's an entertainment.
Oh yeah.
Purpose. But what they don't realize in the end that you watch it because you're entertained by it. Because of whatever's going on, but that's subconsciously everything that they're, trying to influence you on, you're still being influenced by, because then that's where your source of information is coming from, and now this is your opinion. And it's all corrupted by people who are wanting you to have these thoughts and these beliefs. I do not support any kind of local news. Like whenever I was watching the Chiefs parade come through and everything, like I was just cringing at the fact that I had to listen to 41 Action News commentate the whole thing, even though they're not trying to get me, they're not telling me who got shot on whatever street and, whatever else, politically that they're trying to get across. But I'm still just like cringing at the fact that I can't believe I'm allowing myself to even listen to their voices right now. But I was like, I have to watch it because it's the Chiefs parade, the, celebratory parade. But no, it's very frustrating, that media can just come in and they're not regulated in any way and we've had debates on here before about companies should be able to do what they want, but at some point, like me and Johnny have argued, about it a lot, but whether or not there needs to be some regulations that come in to be like, yeah, you are a corporation and you should be able to do whatever you want in a corporation, but this is something that affects the public and how they view things, and if you can suppress information and really twist it like for your financial benefit, I think is an evil thing. So there needs to be something done. I think there should be something done about that.
See, and I don't want to go off on this tangent.
And I understand the argument on the other
side
too.
I was going to say, because it's very much at the end of the day, like that falls upon us as people, especially the libertarian, and you should realize that like these companies can do whatever they want. They've earned the right to do whatever they want. It's unfortunate if you start putting more government regulation on them. That's just a less libertarian view. That's more government control, which is not what we want. But these corporations,
not only just more government control, but larger government in the end, more taxes.
Which is why it falls back on to us as the citizens to say, hey, I'm not going to watch CNN or CBS and believe everything they say. I'm not going to watch Fox News and believe everything they say. The problem is that you have, and I hate to be, I don't want to say this, but it's most of the time I would say that this proves true, would be that the older generation is stuck in that's where they get their news from. That's how stuff is done. And I'm just saying the majority, not all, there's definitely gaps there and stuff.
Well,
but
Pat, was there, what act was it? I think it was in either the 40s or 50s. There was some sort of bill that was passed that allowed propaganda to be projected at the American people, because there was a certain time where it wasn't allowed.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the 40s or 50s, but I know that something was passed at the time George Bush was president and allowed fake news to become, or propaganda, as a better word for it, to become part of the mainstream. And that was because of the Iraq War. And so at any rate, they were paying for quote-unquote positive news stories, and they were rejecting negative news stories about the war in Iran. And I don't know enough about how that happened or the etymology of it to actually say anything with any authority. But I do remember that happening during the Bush administration. And I'm talking Bush Jr.
That wouldn't surprise me one bit, because you have that happens all the time during different war times where you hear about propaganda and everything. To think that we're some great country that wouldn't stoop that low is, in my opinion, pretty I don't know, stupid, moronic in a degree. Like, of course we'll stoop that low. Of course we will have the media, like when we're going to war after 2001 and everything, going to war and having them be like, all the media basically being propaganda towards us, U.S. citizens, saying, hey, everything's going great and you should support this and this is what we're doing, because that's what you do in wartime. But you get people hyped up. And you could say the same during World War II. The Nazis had propaganda for their own people saying what was going on that wasn't all true. They didn't talk about...
And not to go down this road, Johnny, I know you don't want to. And Pat, if you want to, chime in after what I'm about to say, is like it goes to say what Jesse's point is the fact that, look, it's in wartime, and these news media outlets are encouraging U.S. citizens to agree upon something that is false. They shouldn't have that much sway into the public opinion. I just disagree with that.
That's our fault. That's our fault.
Sure, it's our fault, but for us, I mean, I can't even talk right now. For it to even allowed to happen, that's what's frustrating. It shouldn't even be allowed.
But here's the thing: as soon as you don't make it allowed, as soon as you say that that's illegal to do or whatever, now all media, that's just as bad, man. Now all media is controlled by the government because they're the ones putting regulation on them. Do you want that? That's just as bad.
I consider the media and the federal government inextricably linked at this point. They're incestuously linked.
True.
Absolutely. And they shouldn't be linked at all, right? Because
in a way they were, and it wasn't founding documents that did it. It was kind of a mantra at the time. This is a fourth estate. Basically, it's the fourth branch of government, unofficially, because the media is what would give people the information about what's happening in their government so they can make informed decisions as voters. Yeah. And so that's the founding fathers kind of saw the media as kind of a part of the government, because it was another branch of the government to basically help balance the powers, to make sure that everything was on the up and up everywhere. And the media took that role very responsibly for 100 years or two, and it just went downhill from there.
Well, and you see Project Veritas now coming out, even just lately with NBC on, the owner, the CEO of that company is just saying, like, no matter what, and this was the same shit with CNN. It's just like, all we're going to talk about is Trump. No matter what you want to do as a journalist, you're not going to do it. We're only doing Trump. That's all we're talking about. And these are multi-billion-dollar companies that are swaying, unfortunately, the opinions of American people to vote one way or another. And whether or not that's allowed, I think that the amount of power that they have is unfair to the American people, because unfortunately we are the sheeple, man. Like, a large majority of our population are easily swayable.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. At the end of the day, whether it's allowed or not allowed, regulation, no regulation, the debates that we've had before, you and me, Jesse, all of that outside, none of that really matters. At the end of the day, I will say I'm just glad that there is more citizen journalism, and there's more people on YouTube doing this, and there's more people. As much as I hate Facebook, it's just another form of media output, though, just like YouTube and everything else. I'm glad that there's more people doing this so that you, as a citizen and as a viewer, have options for not only who you can trust. Like, maybe you don't trust us. Maybe you're watching Talk Junkies right now and you don't trust what we're saying. That's perfectly fine. You have other sources you can go look at. And that's the point, is that you have the option and the ability to go out and seek 20 different sources from 20 different people, and then you can put together what sounds right for you. You're like, well, man, 18 out of 20 are pretty much all saying this, and they're smaller groups. They're not just, CBS or whatever, like. And you're like, I trust, out of those 18, I trust these 5. I trust them really well because they've been right about all these things before.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, there's a downfall to this as well. It's a pitfall, and in fact, it was something I was just having a discussion about with someone earlier today. And that's and I think I've coined a new term, gentlemen. And I call it Alex Jones syndrome.
Oh.
And so if you guys want to know what it is, by the way, I do have a lot of respect for Alex Jones. I'm going to go ahead and say that up front. But he did, towards the end of his time, basically on YouTube, get just a little bit wacko. But the thing is the government lies to us so much about so many different things that we just we've come to expect everything they're saying is a lie. We think that the government can't even tell the truth anymore because we have caught them in so many lies over time. Every single aspect of government. It doesn't matter if it's the Congressional Budget Office, if it's the Treasury, and my, oh my, does the Treasury lie. The Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is a private bank, but it's set up to serve only one client, and that's the government. So I consider them government. The Federal Reserve is incapable of telling the truth. Everything they say is a lie. That may sound like Alex Jones syndrome, but I watch these guys like a hawk, and I understand what they're doing. I know many people don't. But you can trust me, or you can spend as much time researching the Federal Reserve as I do. They do nothing but lie. Coronavirus, or as I call it, the beer virus. There's a lot of disinformation out there, and it's forcing citizen journalism into a speculative slant, unfortunately, on their reporting. And that's because of the lack of information and the obvious lies. There are lies too. We got lies from China. We've had lies from the United States. Now, and before we go into the bigger coronavirus thing, I'd just like to know if you guys understand what I mean by the Alex Jones syndrome. And now, if you've just heard so many lies come out of your government all the time, and it doesn't matter, pick a person, AOC, Trump, Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. Pick a person, Barack Obama. I've heard more lies from these folks than I've heard the truth. And it's just a fact.
I feel like that's just our government in general. And we've proven that as American people time and time again. I mean, you have Snowden. That was a big deal that people cared about for a long time, proving that they were lying to us about spying on us. You have the thing, Jesse knows more about this than I do, but the Gary Webb thing with the was it cocaine?
The CIA bringing in cocaine
or
to
meth
fund,
or whatever
to fund
it was.
a war. Yeah.
All this stuff that we have proved time and time again that they're lying to us, and then they finally admit it about 10 years, 20 years after the fact, and they're like, yeah, you caught us, we were lying, but we don't do it anymore. That was back then. That was 20 years ago. Like, what?
Yeah.
This is what I've always said about Alex Jones. Me and Paul have had constant talk about Alex Jones since from whenever he was being completely taken off YouTube and they completely restricted him and everything. I said, Alex Jones is his own worst enemy, which is kind of clear because not everything can be a conspiracy theory. You can't break almost everything down that gets brought to you to be some kind of conspiracy theory.
Because then you just sound insane.
That's irrational.
Yep.
And honestly, on the other side of the spectrum, you can't say that there are no conspiracy theories and that nothing is ever being done and the government's completely truthful with, the acts that they're doing. I think it lies somewhere in the middle. But I've always said this. Alex Jones says a lot of outlandish things, and I think a lot of people laugh at him. I think mainly because of his personality and the manner in which he talks. Like, that dude is a talker. We all know that. But what really scares me is, man, what has he gotten right that we just can't even take for truth because we're just like, man, he is his own worst enemy because everything is kind of a conspiracy theory with him. And we've all seen the ridiculous highlight videos of him
Turns
with
a
the
freaking
tinfoil
frog's
hat.
gay. Turns
yeah,
a freaking
the
frog's
gay
gay
thing, and he's wearing the tinfoil hat. But I'm telling you, there is some stuff that he's getting right that we all just pass over and skim by because of, like I said, he's his own worst enemy because he just brings up too many conspiracy theories.
It's honestly, it's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, a little bit. But absolutely. With him. But I'm like, that's what scares me, is because Alex Jones might be getting 30% of what he's saying right. If he's getting 30% of what he's saying right, that is scary as shit to me. And that wouldn't surprise me.
Screwed.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. If he's getting 30% right, and that's just like logically where I'd probably put him at, I'm like, that's insane. But I mean, all that. That's what I have to say about Alex Jones. And I really like Alex Jones too. I really like his podcast that he did with Joe Rogan, where I feel like even though he went off on some like really outlandish things there too, but I mean he's getting some of that right. There's no way that Alex Jones is 100% wrong and oh man he's complete bullshit. Even if it's 10%,
you're right though in the fact
even
that
if
he's
it's 10%,
his own worst enemy because you take someone like me who really wasn't listening to Alex Jones, like I wasn't paying attention to him at all, and then whenever I had a lot of people bring him to my attention, by then it was already too late because then everything I heard about Alex Jones was turns the freaking frogs gay,
like tainted.
And yeah, exactly. It was. He had done so much that to me,
sad.
Before
sad,
me,
it shouldn't
he
be that
just
way.
sounded crazy. He just sounded crazy. When if I had actually been paying attention to him for a long time before it got crazier and crazier, I would have been like, all right, there's some truth to some of this.
Oh yeah, guys. I just full disclosure. I've been listening to Alex Jones since 1997.
Wow.
And so he had a show that was on shortwave. That's how I first found him. And then he made it onto the radio, and then, of course, Coast to Coast AM, during the late 90s, early 2000s. And I got to tell you, back then, and even up to, I would say probably 2014 is where I started to see change in him. Some people say they recognized it before then, but he brought everything. He woke up so many folks to the police state that they couldn't even see growing up around them. He literally predicted 9/11 3 months before it happened. That's why he's famous today, by the way. He would never be this famous if he did not predict 9/11. And he did. He predicted 9/11 with almost perfect clarity. Is he an insider for figuring that out? Well, no one came and arrested him. He stated where he was getting his information from, and he said himself it took thousands of pieces of information, pieced them together, and figured out that Project Bojinka was actually an attack on our nation, not a training exercise.
That's one.
And go ahead.
No, that's just one thing he's good at. I've watched many of InfoWars podcasts, hour-long podcasts. The dude, just the amount of information on his desk that he's constantly looking at, and I probably watched him since early 2009, and I don't want to say that there was like a point in time where I could tell he was different, but obviously the stuff with Sandy Hook and the things that he said with that, and obviously he got in trouble with that for what he said, and I think that's where it's been different. Like I'm sure you saw the video with him, and when Brian traveled down to Virginia, and he actually, or wherever he went, and he found Alex Jones, and he was videotaping him, and he actually had an actual conversation with Alex, and he just, at that point, to me, seemed extremely different. Maybe it was the money that got to him. In my opinion, I think he just, millions of people listened to him. He got pretty rich, and maybe that's what changed him.
Yep, it could be.
And also, you have to look, like he was selling his own supplements too. And I mean, everybody has to make their money. Don't get me wrong. Like, and there's nothing wrong with making money, but it almost like, and it almost, once again, like Alex Jones being his own worst enemy thing. Like whenever I'd listen to a podcast and he'd be like talking about these supplements that you need to combat whatever he was talking about on the podcast that would help with this that was happening, I'm like, man, this sounds like you're setting yourself up to make money.
What you're basically getting into that is even
a little bit, but
even if 80% of what he was saying was still OG Alex Jones stuff, that other 20% was kind of sellout stuff, which happens, and I don't blame him for it. But as soon as you start selling out a little, people start to trust you less. That's the honest God truth. Even though you're right, there's nothing wrong with him.
Especially with the people that he was talking to.
There's nothing
right.
There's nothing wrong with him doing that, though. There's nothing wrong with him trying to make money. But us as people, when we see that, when we witness that, I feel like on a subconscious level, we realize it's not genuine. As soon as he becomes ingenuine, you don't care anymore, and you don't trust that person.
Did you feel that, Pat, at all? Like, did you see him grow into where he started just trying to sell supplements as opposed to put a message across the board?
Yeah, but that was a preemptive move on his part, because he actually foresaw being taken down from YouTube and being demonetized from YouTube, and spoke of it about 4 years before it happened. So it was roughly 6 years ago is about the time that he started coming up with his own supplement line. And by the way, I mean, this man is amazing for predicting the future. I mean, no one can, deny that. He literally was complaining, saying, I will be the first one demonetized and thrown off of YouTube. He says, believe you me. And he said it 4 years before it happened. He was pretty, he was pretty smart. He had that part figured out, where no one else was seeing this demonetization coming from YouTube. But he saw, basically, he put two and two together. Alphabet is a CIA corporation. Everybody knows it. It's just hidden in plain sight. Alphabet owns Google, and Google was started with CIA seed money, and the two guys who started Google were recruited out of college, and Google buys YouTube. That's all he needed to know. He said, that's all I need to know. He says, they will get rid of me. It will happen.
It's a valid point.
Guaranteed. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said that's a valid point.
And they really even haven't got rid of him. He's still making his way onto YouTube, still has full sets, hour sets on YouTube. Granted, it's not his channel. He's not making money off of it, but his message is still being broadcasted to the American people.
Well, and that's the exact reason that, like I said earlier, I don't blame him for lack of a better term, I'm going to say selling out. Just for lack of a better term. It's not really selling out, but doing his own thing to make income another way. I don't blame him for that one bit. But it's unfortunate that us as humans, we can't help it that on a subconscious level, whenever we see that, we see them as being less genuine. The same thing would happen for anybody who watches our channel. The same thing happens for channels that I watch that are really big channels that I've been watching for a long time, for 3 or 4 years. I'm talking basic stuff. I'm talking stuff that doesn't even matter, like watching a channel that is playing video games, that they play a video game that I like to watch. As soon as they start like selling energy drinks and selling, they're like, click on my Amazon affiliate link for keyboards and mice and all this stuff, like I start caring less, even though I shouldn't. They're just trying to get theirs. They're still doing the same content. They're just trying to get theirs
for
too.
sure. Yeah, anyone in that position.
It's just unfortunate. That's a side effect that I don't think we can control.
No, not at all.
Right.
So Pat, what do you got on this coronavirus, man? We did a whole podcast on it last week, and Jesse and Johnny have some interesting takes, man. I watched a legitimate video last night of a Canadian.
I watched that. You sent that to me.
Of this Canadian journalist who went out there and how he got in. He went to Wuhan, man. Like, he legitimately filmed some shit, and it was very. To me, it might be different for Johnny, but it was very striking. Like, I mean, he went to Shanghai, which is like the second or third most populated city in China, with 24 million people, and there's 3 or 4 people on the streets, man. I mean, it was nuts.
From what I saw of it, I believe what he recorded was real and all this. I will say that it seemed like what he said it seemed like the things that he said, he was maybe not goaded into saying, but approved to say.
Oh,
by
for sure,
by the police, by the World Health Organization, very much. It was an approved video by the people that you maybe shouldn't 100% trust in the first place. Well, that's all I'm saying.
It was just interesting to actually be there. You know what I'm saying? With my own 2 eyes.
Oh, still a great video.
Yeah, I was able to be there and see what was going on.
It was also very, like, I mean, the editing, the sound that they use and everything, it's very much, it's a fear tactic type of video to sell. I get that.
Either way, 24 million people and you see like 3 or 4 people on the street. To me, that's striking.
Oh, it was crazy.
What do you got, Pat?
Well, I got a lot, actually, and a lot of it is largely speculation, and which is one reason why I haven't talked about the virus. I mean, I'm a finance guy, so I mean, talking about the ramifications to the supply chains around the world is something that I have a really good grasp on, and I understand, basically what takes down supply chains. And so I've talked about that. As far as the virus itself goes, I am learning as I go. And I'm talking about the mechanics of this virus and how it works. Do you guys, have you guys heard anything about the mechanics of this virus?
It just spreads faster than the flu. It just grows bigger.
And so the death ratio is slightly higher than the flu, is what I've heard.
Okay. No, you guys hit on 2 things that are exactly what makes this one a little bit different. Now, unfortunately, that's what caused basically citizen journalists to start speculating and digging. And I'm going to tell you, and by the way, none of this that I'm about to tell you can I prove personally. There are smarter people on YouTube who are doing videos on this. I'd like to promote Ellie 1978, ELE 1978. She's done an extensive amount of research on this. But it looks like this is a bioweapon. And the reason why people are saying it's a bioweapon, first of all, it's patented, but that's not anything new. I mean, lots of things in nature are patented. But unfortunately, go ahead.
How do you patent?
That happens all the time.
So somebody discovers it and then they patent it.
Yes. So that can happen with any kind of flu or virus.
Well, how do you make profit of a patented virus? Because whenever you patent something, it's because you're worried about other people. That's confusing to me.
That's more of a patent of discovery. Like, whenever you discover something, you're the person who discovered it.
You're forever credited for that.
Exactly. It's more of a credit or...
Okay. Whenever I think patent, I think you're trying to make money off of it. But okay.
Well, hang on. We're going there. Unfortunately. And once again, this is somewhat conspiratorial. I don't want to say conspiracy theory because there's too much evidence to back up what I'm about to say. The current COVID-19 or coronavirus that's running around apparently seems to have 2 protein patterns in its DNA. One is from Ebola and one is from AIDS. And the part that they took from AIDS was the long incubation period. So what that means is you're infected and you're contagious for all the way up to, according to Cliff High, once again on YouTube, up to 44 days before you even have symptoms. And you're contagious the entire time. The Ebola part of it is with the reinfection, people having severe kidney damage or heart attacks. So Ebola goes after your internal organs. It liquefies them. So those are the two aspects of this virus that make people believe that this is definitely a bioweapon. To make it even worse, the patent for the current virus that's running around, what we call coronavirus, was actually Bill and Melinda Gates. They have a patent on this particular strain of the virus. And it was apparently developed in a lab in England. It was shared with a level 4 lab in Canada, stolen by the Chinese from Canada, brought to Wuhan, where they do have a level 4 lab, and apparently accidentally got out. And that's why you saw the massive lockdown in China that you saw. Now, once again, some of this is speculation. Some of this can be proven. So that's the etymology of this particular virus, and that should scare the hell out of you.
I would just like to...
Go ahead.
I just wanted to put this out there to the viewers for a second. I don't think... You've already said it's speculation. I just want to clarify that, like, everything we're talking about right now is speculation and a little bit of conspiracy back and forth. There's some truth there. There's some conspiracy. I just want to clarify that for people, but there's nothing wrong with talking about that. I actually enjoy talking about the what ifs or the hypotheticals or the could have kind of things, and it's interesting to try to wrap your mind around something that you don't normally believe in.
Right. And once again, this is why I'm going to have to say you'll have to seek this information out on YouTube. However, one person I know that's doing a great job is Ellie 1978. But also, I would like to point out that Chris Martinson, I think is his name, and oh dear God, I shouldn't have even have said his name. I'm going to have to look him up, and I'll do that while we're talking, so I can give everyone what his channel is, his YouTube channel is. He is a doctor, and he has been looking into this, and he basically says the same thing I'm saying, with the exception of the fact that it was created by Bill and Melinda Gates. That's the only part that he won't say publicly, but everything else I just said, he'll say. The part where it's, basically I don't know that Bill and Melinda Gates actually paid to develop this, but they do have the patent on this strain of the virus.
That's fact.
So that's fact, correct.
And why would Bill Gates want to patent that? Who knows? I mean, but he's had TED Talks where he's talked about control or population control. Like he's legitimately came out and said it. Yeah, he's 100% said stuff like that. So you put two and two together, man. I mean, doesn't really take a scientist.
Well, and when you're
if you get down to the core, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, because we talked about this before about the convenient timing.
Presidential election.
Not even president. It has nothing to do with the presidential election. You're talking about all the riots, in China? all the riots and protests that were happening there. And then out of nowhere,
they all got shut down, didn't they, gang? Everywhere around the world,
and nobody's talking about that.
I mean, and it's not even. I mean, okay, so I don't get on Facebook at all. I'm on Imager a lot. I really like Imager. It's a lot more like laid back, and it's still like a social media a little bit, but not so much. I saw so much on the Hong Kong protests just every day in this support from this community, in the Imager community, of like backing these people up and about the right to your liberty and freedom from suppression of your government. And then out of nowhere, literally almost overnight, nobody was talking about that anymore. Completely died. I mean, like literally overnight, in the blink of an eye. Now everything's coronavirus. Now Imager is all tracking coronavirus. There's this one guy who's been tracking, like, and I don't even know how accurate his information is, because whenever he did the coronavirus podcast, I was getting different numbers from him because that's where I'd been tracking it from. But he had a fairly reliable website. They were like slightly off numbers as far as the mortality rate in all this. But it's just crazy to think, right? That, man, there was all these protests, these people fighting for their liberty. And then now there's this virus that's killing people through human contact. And then And
which is even crazier is the fact that typically these kind of viruses show up right in the 1920s, 1820s, 1720s.
Sometimes it's almost too convenient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's almost too convenient.
I'm going to go one step farther and say that I'm going to go ahead and predict when people are going to stop talking about this and when it kind of all just fizzles out, goes away. The cure's there, the vaccine's there, it's not spreading anymore. Oh man, the virus is kind of dying out on itself actually, which is really good, blah, blah, blah. Whatever excuse you want to make, I'm going to go ahead and say the beginning of July because the beginning of July is when you will start seeing presidential campaign commercials on TV. That's when so you have a scare tactic / once again, this is all conspiracy and speculation, hypothetical, but you have a scare tactic thing to keep people not paying attention to the things they should, like preliminaries and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you have at the beginning of July when you are going to get massively bombarded on Facebook and TV and everywhere with campaigns for primary candidates.
Yes.
You see, you guys have connected the dots here because actually I was going to bring that up. The protesting around the world has stopped. And it's interesting how it took a virus to actually do that, but it has stopped we're talking Hong Kong, we're talking all over Europe. There were protests happening all over Europe. And my gosh, Libya, they were happening in Africa. They were happening in China proper, mainland. They were starting to happen here in the United States, and all protests have been shut down. That is one of the dots that it's extremely important to connect in correlation with COVID-19. However, there's another aspect to it, which is you guys understand the everything bubble, bonds, stocks, stock market,
follow the money.
The real estate. We could go on and on with everything that's in bubbles because the Federal Reserve just won't stop printing money. It's the only way they can continue the system. And now this money has not made it out to the general populace. Otherwise, we'd have a massive hyperinflation. So they keep it contained in these markets. They've done a good job at doing that. But the thing is they're inflating the bubbles beyond the reach of the average person to afford stocks, bonds, real estate, what have you. So eventually, that's when the bubble pops, is when people just can't afford this stuff anymore. Now, this COVID-19 has shut down all manufacturing in China. So manufacturing is, and not just manufacturing, but also the supply lines. They're cut. So we have, and you guys are smart enough to know that about 70% of everything that's made on the planet is either made in China or has a component of it made in China.
Well, Microsoft stock dropped 18% in a week.
That seems almost low for me. You said 70%?
Correct.
I mean, everything, my iPhone, everything whenever I was a kid growing up, on the foot of a soldier said made in China. The fact that it's 70% you're telling me right now almost seems low in my mind, but
well, no, you have to remember now, there's other things that we do make here in the United States, like medical devices.
Yeah.
We make food here. So 70% of everything would include that stuff as well.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely high. But no, yeah, I mean that's easily to see that basically everything's made in China.
So, but how does that affect the economy of China? Obviously, it's devastating.
It's absolutely devastating. I'll tell you how it affects China. Number one, we already have businesses that have officially gone out of business in China because this lockdown has been absolutely devastating for them. So Chris Martenson actually has I'm going to have to find a video, and I will get you a link to put in the description section. It's done by Mike Maloney, but he had I think his name is Chris Martenson, or Matt Martenson, something like that, on as a guest. And this guy is an expert. So you can hear it from him that basically the lockdown, if it goes 3 months, China will never recover. Never. They will never recover if they lock down for 3 months.
I don't foresee that happening.
Yep, that's it. It's over. The reason being is because the globalists, basically the power elite, whatever you want to call them, decided to assemble all the manufacturing in one country of the world, and that's China. And they made that decision in 1971 when Richard Nixon opened up China to the New World Order, but also to the WTO, the World Trade Organization. So therein began the slow march to move all manufacturing to China because they had slave labor rates. 25 cents an hour is what they were in 2000, but in 1971 they worked for the equivalent of a nickel an hour. So the American manufacturers were paying people in the United States $15 an hour plus, half of their Social Security, plus half of their Medicare, plus half of their insurance. So they were paying the equivalent of about $30 an hour for American employees. Well, they said, holy crap, if we could do it for a nickel an hour, We'll do that. So that's why stuff started moving to China. And and by the way, if we had more time, I could give you all the brass tacks on how that happened in 2000, because I was very much involved in trying to stop most favored nation trading status for China in 2000. It got me into a big tussle with a guy by the name of Roy Blunt. You guys have probably heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a life-changing event for me because he showed me how powerful he was. And I dropped anything having to do with politics for a long time because I got the feces scared out of me. I mean, I'm a grown man and I'm not afraid of many things, but you mess with a senator and you start speaking truth to a senator and you start doing it publicly, they will come after you. And that's my story. We'll do another podcast on that someday. And I'll let you guys know the story of everything that he had done to me. And I've said it publicly before, so I have no problem putting it on. Go ahead.
If you got to go to bed early, I completely understand. And but we're gonna be up for a couple more hours. Yeah, we can go as long as you want to go. So just let us know.
Yep.
Just real quick, Pat. I'm gonna go back.
Sure.
Just a little bit here.
It's like stuck on.
It's like hot.
I know,
okay.
It's stuck on right now.
So I have a question for you. Whenever it comes to these, whenever you talk about the global elite and them making a decision that this is where the cheapest manufacturing can be. Mm-hmm. This is something that that I struggle with in my mind. Are these people so just disassociated from the common man that they don't realize that them mathematically and doing things globally and trying to come up with the best means for themselves is just them mathematically doing some things, or are they truly evil? Kind of question.
Well,
like so do you know what I mean? Like, are they really like truly deep down evil, or
yes,
is it just them? Or is it just them? Maybe, man, this is how they're mathematically figuring it out, and they're so disassociated with the rest of the population to where they're not even doing it intentionally, like intentionally evil, but them mathematically figuring out how they can work this whole thing out to the best benefit. And don't get me wrong, there's still some evil there regardless. Mm-hmm. But is it is it like this pure evil, or is it you know what I mean? Or are they just that much farther away because of how they grew up and everything else? Because I would like to believe a little bit of best in all human beings. But so that's my question to you.
Okay, gotcha. And that goes down another interesting road here of my study of the elite. Because not all of them are Satan worshipers. Not all of them are. Like, for instance, Hillary is a Satan worshiper. Chelsea is a Satan worshiper. Bill is just a political opportunist and a skirt chaser. So, the kind of evil that I think of is the ones that actually do actively worship Satan. And by the way, that's just a small sampling. There's a lot more people in Washington and around Washington that actually are members of the Church of Satan. And I don't say that lightly. I don't just throw that out there to try and shock people. Look it up. Do a search for Chelsea Clinton. She wears an upside down necklace, or an upside down cross necklace. It's a sign that she's in the Church of Satan. But as far as the psychopaths and sociopaths that actually run the country, I don't know if I would classify them as purely evil, because they do have a brain disorder. But you have to remember now, psychopaths and sociopaths are attracted to positions of power. The more powerful the position, the more they want it. And so that's why you should never trust anyone who's running for president of the United States. That's very few people are good people that actually go for that position, and they get squashed by the
JFK,
media.
like JFK. He was probably the last good one, right?
Yep. Well, he had a very messy personal life, but his political record was pretty good. It was pretty stellar. And I'm not a Democrat. And but then again, if you look at the Democratic Party of the 60s, of Kennedy's Democrat Party, that is much more tuned with what you'd see in the Republican Party today. So the Republicans have shifted to the left, but so have the Democrats. And in fact, this is kind of my thing here, and it's something I talk about often. So picture, if you will, a straight line. And on the right side of that line is what we would call the right. And the left side of the line is what we would call the left. In the middle would be called, maybe moderate. And on the right, on the far right, you have anarchy, which is no government. You might have rules, but you don't have officially a government. And then right next to that, you have minarchist. And then right next to that, you have Constitution Party. And right next to that, you have Libertarian Party. So you guys get the flow of it. Once you passed, the middle of the line, which we will call moderate, then you actually get to the Republican Party. The Republican Party is left of center. And once you go to the Democrat side, you're already in socialism, but so is the Republican Party. We're already socialist. And then after socialism,
Thank you.
You get into communism, and after communism is totalitarianism. Okay, now that I've helped you envision that line, what you can see for the continuity is size of government. On the far right, you have no government, and on the far left, you have the biggest government you can imagine. So this is why we have gone so far left. We have grown our government so big, it's become such a huge interference in our lives, is because we let it. We let it grow. And the Republicans, by the way, are socialists too. So, I mean, I get along okay with most Republicans. Most Democrats, because I'm a libertarian, most Democrats more or less kind of associate themselves with socialism now. And I'm definitely against, socialism. I don't want government having control over me in my life. And that's what socialism represents, is control of your money, control of your time, control of, everything you own. And then communism is coming towards, basically totalitarianism in socialism. And, when I grew up, they used to teach us, Hitler was on the right and communism's on the left. Nothing could be further from the truth. Hitler was on the left. He was a socialist. He was a dictator socialist. So I don't understand why the textbooks got that so wrong. And I think it was brainwashing. But then again, I don't like the public schools either.
Oh, so, no.
I think a lot of this correct me if I'm wrong, but the people that are in powers that be, and we've talked about this in many podcasts before, is, man, they've had a very long run at this. Like, this isn't like just something new that just popped up. Like, these bloodlines are connected in some way, shape, or form with who's been running this country for such a long time. So, I mean, it's been this way for a while, and they're only getting better. They're only getting more well-groomed as each century goes by on how to control the lives that we live. And to us, it seems, it seems so simple the way that we talk about it, but like literally they've been doing this for hundreds of years, and this is the end result. Like, we're sitting here talking about who's left, who's right, who's socialist. We are socialist, but you know what I'm saying? But this is their game. We're playing into their game, and it's been that way for a very long time. That's just my opinion.
Oh man, yeah. Not to get off on something weird here, because this is almost backtracking a little bit, but I wanted, and this is going to bring up 9/11 again. Whenever you talk about, and Pat, I don't know if you've been around any young people who've been through high school recently, in the past couple of years, but they're now teaching the 9/11 incident in high schools, in history class. Mm-hmm. And what is being taught is in the textbook, just super basic. Oh, there was this terrorist group that hated America that came in and, took over these planes and then ran it into, I'm pretty sure they only talk about the two towers too, if I remember. They don't talk about the other location. Oh, the Pentagon. The Pentagon's the other big one. They don't talk about Building 9. They don't talk about the fact that NORAD was already planning like a war games thing, to where they literally were confused about what was happening then.
Whether it was real or not.
Whether it was real or not. They were literally, I remember learning about this back when, because whenever it all happened for me, I was like really young. Back in 2001, like I think I was 11.
We were 10 or 11.
Yeah, I was like 11 years old whenever this happened for me. I still remember where I was for 9/11. I remember my grandmother like crying, saying this is Pearl Harbor all over again, which actually it was. I mean, if there was a more true statement to anything else than was my grandmother sitting there in tears, and her being however old, and she's no longer with us, but she was like, this is Pearl Harbor all over again, which is honestly exactly what it was. Ironic. But to see how it's being taught now and how I viewed it and how I heard much later on in life, probably whenever I was 17, started hearing alternative views of it. And then to really, whenever you get just a little, I mean, you don't have to spend too much time on this matter. I feel as though it's fairly easy that 9/11 is blatant. I'm pretty sure they did a poll, and it's over 50% of Americans that think that we were very much involved in 9/11.